The boy had just woken up when he was shocked to discover that he had turned into a girl. At first, he thought it was just a dream, but when he looked in the mirror, he was stunned to realize this wasn't a dream at all. Meanwhile, a girl somewhere else was going through the exact same thing. The story takes place in a remote town called Itomori. Mitsuha's mother passed away from illness when she was young. Her father, a local politician, was always busy with work and rarely came home. She and her younger sister Yatsuha were raised by their grandmother. During dinner, the TV news reported that a comet appearing once every 1,200 years would pass by Earth in a month, but no one really paid attention to it. On the way to school, Sayaka and Katsuhiko mentioned that Mitsuha had been acting like she was possessed yesterday, but Mitsuha had no idea what they were talking about. In class, she was startled to see the words "Who are you?" written in her textbook. As she sat there confused, the teacher called on her to answer a question. When she couldn't respond, the teacher joked, "Well, at least Mitsuha remembers her own name today." The comment only made her more unsettled. Why did everyone think there was something wrong with her yesterday? She couldn't remember a thing. All she knew was that yesterday felt like a blurry dream. Mitsuha was fed up with everything about this town. The trains only ran once every 2 hours. There was no bookstore, no cafe. Her biggest dream was to graduate as soon as possible and move to Tokyo. If she had the choice, she wouldn't even want to be a girl anymore. She wished she could be a handsome boy in Tokyo instead. As night fell, the lights in Mitsuha's house were still on. Her grandmother taught her how to braid cords. Every twist of the thread carried 1,000 years of the town's history. As the shrine's caretaker, her grandmother often complained that Mitsuha's father Toshiki had abandoned their family's sacred duty to pursue a career in politics. Meanwhile, Toshiki was busy attending gatherings for the upcoming mayoral election. Watching from the side, Katsuhiko felt that the adults' socializing reeked of hypocrisy. Katsuhiko's family owned the largest construction company in town, but he had no intention of following the path his father laid out for him. At the same time, Mitsuha and her sister dressed as shrine maidens for a ritual. The most important part was making kuchikamizaki, rice wine brewed by chewing the rice. Legend said the wine carried half of a person's soul. Mitsuha placed the sticky rice into her mouth, then spat it into a container. Her classmates mocked it, saying the wine was disgusting. Mitsuha had long since grown tired of all of it. She shouted toward the mountains, "Please let me be a handsome boy in Tokyo in my next life." Perhaps even the gods found her wish amusing. Her soul was actually reincarnated as a handsome boy in Tokyo. A text message arrived, urging her to hurry to school. The moment Mitsuha pushed open the door, the Tokyo she had always dreamed of appeared right before her eyes. She gasped. This dream felt unbelievably real. Running late, Mitsuha stood awkwardly at the classroom door, completely at a loss. Suddenly, a boy placed a hand on her shoulder from behind. His name was Tsukasa, a close friend of the boy she had possessed, Taki. But today, whether it was the way she sat or the way she spoke, everything about her seemed strange to everyone else. When Mitsuha heard they were going to a cafe later, she was so excited that she almost cried, but the expensive menu left her stunned. One pancake cost as much as her entire monthly allowance. She couldn't help but sigh, thinking, what an amazing dream. Then her phone reminded her that she had to go to work, so she hurried to the restaurant where Taki worked part-time. But Mitsuha had no experience with part-time jobs. She kept making mistakes. 2 customers called her over. They had deliberately placed a toothpick into the pizza to make things difficult for her. Just then, Mickey stepped in to help her out. One of the men stared at the beautiful Mickey and quietly pulled out a box cutter. After closing time, Mitsuha repeatedly thanked Mickey. Then a coworker suddenly noticed that Mickey's skirt had been slashed open in a very sensitive spot. Mickey's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. Mitsuha gathered her courage, took Mickey's hand, and led her into the break room. She carefully stitched the tear in the skirt. Her delicate handiwork earned Mickey's admiration and praise. What Mitsuha didn't know was that Taki had always liked Mickey. Looking through Taki's phone, she saw diary entries and photos of Mickey. She found this boy cute and interesting. Suddenly, she remembered the words written in her textbook. "Who are you?" So she decided to write her own name on Taki's palm. The next day, Taki's soul returned to his own body. When he saw the name written on his hand, he panicked. His phone diary had been updated by someone else. On the other side, when Mitsuha woke up, she found her arms covered in writing. As she walked into the classroom, her classmates gasped, saying Mitsuha was finally acting normal again today. Because yesterday, she had been under Taki's control. Mitsuha stood there completely stunned. Her textbooks were filled with Taki's handwriting and doodles. At the same time, both of them realized this wasn't a dream. Based on their experiences so far, their souls were swapping 2 to 3 times a week, and there was no warning at all. It usually happened after they fell asleep. Just like that, Taki, living in Tokyo, and Mitsuha, the girl from the countryside, began experiencing each other's lives. In order not to ruin the other's daily routine, they set some rules. Everything they did while in the other's body had to be recorded, but Taki had no understanding of a girl's modesty. He even played basketball without wearing a bra. Meanwhile, Mitsuha kept improving Taki's relationship with Miki. They left each other messages in every way possible. Gradually, Taki began to enjoy life in the countryside, and Mitsuha learned how to handle life in Tokyo with confidence. One day, the soul swap happened again. This time, Taki remembered to wear a bra, even though Mitsuha strictly forbade him from touching her chest. Every time they switched back, Taki would instinctively grab his own chest out of habit. October 14th, the comet was approaching perihelion, and today was the day to visit the shrine. Taki carried their elderly grandmother on his back. Soon, they crossed over rocky hills. Before them lay an open clearing, the shrine. The massive crater formed by a meteor 1,000 years ago left Taki in awe. The purpose of their visit was to offer Mitsuha and Yatsuha's kuchikamizaki to the shrine. Time passed quickly. By the time they headed back, the sun was already setting. Gazing at the breathtaking scenery, Taki absent-mindedly started talking about the comet. Grandmother, as if she had seen through everything, asked him gently whether he was dreaming. Suddenly, the soul swap stopped. Taki jolted awake in his bed. Just then, his phone rang, pulling him back to reality. It turned out Mitsuha had set up a date between Taki and Miki. On the other side, Mitsuha felt an unexplainable sense of loss. Taki met up with the beautiful Miki. Meanwhile, Mitsuha tied her hair back and found herself quietly crying. It felt as if something was missing from her heart. Taki, with zero dating experience, turned the date into an awkward ordeal. At the art museum, a painting of Lake Itomori made him stop for a long time. Miki faintly sensed that Taki today felt like a different person. She spoke her intuition plainly. Before, Taki definitely liked her, but now, he probably liked someone else. Miki walked away into the glow of the sunset. At that moment, Mitsuha's braided cord was already tied around Taki's wrist. Night slowly fell. In one of Mitsuha's messages, she had written that by the end of the date, the comet should be visible. Taki's emotions grew more intense. His mind was filled with Mitsuha. He tried calling her, but no one answered on the other end, and the comet never appeared in the sky. When Mitsuha woke from her dream, it was already dusk. Katsuhiko informed her about the autumn festival. When they saw Mitsuha, both of them froze. Mitsuha had cut her long hair, perhaps for her. Taki and Miki's date signaled the end of her own feelings. Cutting her hair was her way of freeing her heart. Under the vast sky, the comet streaked across the night with its long tail. The dreamlike scene was etched deeply into Mitsuha's eyes. But before she could make a wish, the comet suddenly split apart. Taki couldn't get through to Mitsuha's phone. He felt disappointed. He had planned to tell her everything the next time they switched, but for some reason, after that day, they never swapped souls again. The longing grew stronger. Taki was nearly breaking down. Losing contact with Mitsuha felt like a hole had been torn open in his heart. Relying on faint memories, he sketched over and over on paper. He was determined to draw everything about Mitsuha. He lost interest in everything else. Life continued as usual on the surface, but inside, Taki could think of nothing but the girl who had vanished without a trace. Finally, one day, Taki decided to find the town of Itomori, to find the lake, to find that girl. Unexpectedly, Miki and Tsukasa decided to come along. They assumed Taki was going to meet an online girlfriend, and worried he might get scammed. But what Miki and Tsukasa never expected was that Taki didn't even know the exact location of Itomori. After the train stopped, Taki began asking around, yet no matter who he questioned, he couldn't find a single clue about the town of Itomori. Taki felt deeply discouraged. Just then, the owner of a ramen shop recognized the place in Taki's drawing and pointed him in the right direction. But when Taki finally made it to the town of Itomori after all that effort, he found nothing but ruins. The caution tape and warning signs felt like steel needles piercing straight into his heart. That was when Tsukasa suddenly remembered the comet fragment from 3 years ago. A piece of the shattered comet had struck a small village, killing hundreds, but Taki refused to accept it. Just 2 weeks ago, He had been reading Mitsuha's diary, yet when he opened his phone, the entry she had written began disappearing right before his eyes, until everything was completely erased. A chill ran down his spine. He rushed to the library and uncovered the truth in old records. 3 years ago, in October, the comet had come closest to Earth. No one could have predicted that it would suddenly split apart. A fragment of the meteor fell directly onto Itomori. That day was the town's autumn festival. The meteor struck where the crowd had gathered. More than half the town lost their lives. When Taki opened the list of the deceased, his hands began trembling uncontrollably. He saw the names, Sayaka, Katsuhiko, and the one name he dreaded most, Mitsuha. In that moment, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He told himself this had to be a dream. The words in Taki's phone never returned. His memories began to blur. He couldn't even remember who had given him the braided cord on his wrist, and her name vanished abruptly from his mind. It was as if a god had deleted every trace of her existence. Taki felt certain he must be trapped in a dream, but the pain in his chest was so real he could barely breathe. In the haze, he thought he heard Mitsuha calling out to him. When Miki woke up, Taki was already gone. He had left alone to keep searching for that blurry girl in his memories. After walking for who knows how long, Taki arrived at the shrine. So this wasn't a dream after all. As illusion and reality overlapped and twisted together, he could no longer tell whether the water on his face was rain or tears. The bottle of Kuchikamazaki was worn with the marks of time. Taki faintly remembered the jar Mitsuha had made. He untied the cord and pulled out the wooden stopper. Maybe if he drank it, a miracle would happen, because he believed half of that girl's soul was inside the sake. The moment he drank it, time began to rewind. Taki slowly absorbed Mitsuha's memories. Everything they had shared became clear in his mind. In truth, Mitsuha had realized earlier that there was a 3-year gap between their timelines. Inside his heart, Taki screamed. He wanted Mitsuha to leave town with her family before the comet struck, but all he could do was witness her tragedy. Time and space twisted once more. Taki's soul entered Mitsuha's body on the day before her death. This time, he would save the entire town. The comet would arrive tonight. There was still time. Grandmother, however, saw through everything. She calmly said the Mitsuha standing before her was not truly Mitsuha. Their family had a history of soul swapping, like a dream, and memories from dreams fade quickly after waking. But Taki had no time to think. He had to warn everyone about the coming disaster. No one in town believed him, except Katsuhiko and Sayaka, so the three of them quickly formed a plan. They split up. Katsuhiko would prepare explosives, Sayaka would use the high school's broadcast system to order an evacuation, and Taki needed to convince Mitsuha's father, the mayor, to evacuate the town. But Tashiki refused to believe him. When Taki angrily grabbed Tashiki's tie, Tashiki froze, trembling. He asked the girl before him who she really was. On the other side, Mitsuha woke from her dream to find the town already destroyed. She realized in horror that she had died in the comet disaster. At that same moment, Taki remembered something. 3 years ago, Mitsuha had spent an entire year's allowance to travel to Tokyo to find him, but back then, he didn't even know her. He remembered the way her hopeful eyes had slowly turned empty, how much that must have hurt her. Before she left, she threw her braided cord to him and told him her name, but that name was swallowed by the sands of time. From that day on, Taki wore the cord every day, yet he forgot who had given it to him. With tears streaming down his face, Taki ran toward Lake Itomori. Time and space were colliding and folding together. He screamed Mitsuha's name with everything he had, and Mitsuha heard him, but they couldn't see each other until sunset. That brief moment of twilight, when the two timelines overlapped, for a fleeting instant, they finally saw each other. Mitsuha, eyes filled with tears, looked at Taki standing within reach. She was too overwhelmed to speak, but twilight fades quickly, and once it did, they would forget each other again. Taki gently told her to escape before the comet struck, to keep from forgetting. They decided to write each other's names on their hands, but when Mitsuha picked up the pen, she suddenly vanished. Taki repeated her name over and over, afraid of losing it again. Yet when he tried to write it, his memory blurred once more. All he knew now was that he was searching for a girl, but who she was, he couldn't remember. Meanwhile, Mitsuha returned to her own body. She carried out Taki's plan. Katsuhiko blew up the power station. Sayaka triggered the emergency alarm and urged everyone to evacuate to the high school. Mitsuha stumbled and fell hard to the ground, enduring the pain. She tried desperately to remember the boy's name, but the words in her palm had changed to I love you. That was what Taki had written. He knew she would forget his name, so he left behind a confession instead, even if she forgot who he was. He wanted her to know that someone had crossed mountains and oceans just to find her, just to see her once. Not long after, the news reported that a meteor had struck Itomori, but miraculously, there were no casualties. 5 years later, Taki had grown more mature, yet there was always a faint ache in his heart, as if he were searching for something he could no longer remember. He often woke from dreams with tears in his eyes. Mitsuha felt the same, and one day, they happened to meet on separate trains. Just one glance made both their hearts tremble. I feel like I've seen you somewhere before. What was once the most ordinary pickup line became the most romantic sentence of all. Before we knew it, 10 years have passed since this movie was released. The person who once sat beside you watching it for the first time, are they still by your side today? Cherish the one in front of you. Don't leave regrets in your life. May all lovers in the world find their way to each other.